If you're fascinated by what makes us human, well, strap in, because we are diving deep into some really exciting new findings about the human brain.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
really about what makes our brains unique.
Yeah, exactly. So today we're going to take a look at this study out of the German Primate Center and the Max Planck Institute.
Great stuff.
Yeah, they published this in Science Advances, which is, pretty prestigious journal.
Oh, for sure.
And basically they found these two genes
Mm-hmm.
that are only found in humans.
Wow.
And they seem to be playing like a really key role in how our cerebrum develops.
Right. And just to remind the listeners, the cerebrum is the biggest part of our brain.
Yeah, and it's the part that does all the high-level thinking,
All the fun stuff.
Exactly. So we're going to try to understand how these genes actually work together.
Yeah.
And really what that tells us about, what makes us.
Yeah. So what was really surprising to me was how these two genes actually work together during brain development.
Okay.
It's like a beautifully coordinated dance.
Uh-huh.
So one of the genes, what it does is it actually increases the number of brain progenitor cells.
Okay, so more raw material.
Exactly. And you can think of progenitor cells as kind of like the stem cells of the brain.
Okay.
They have the potential to develop into, all the different types of cells that make up the brain.
Got it.
So the first gene is boosting the production of these progenitor cells.
Okay, so that's gene number 1.
Right. And then gene number 2 comes in, and this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The second gene, what it does is it guides those abundant progenitor cells that were just produced.
Yeah.
And it promotes their transformation into a specific type of progenitor cell that is destined to become neurons.
Okay, so it's like specializing the workforce.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have this two-step process. First, you create this big pool of potential brain cells, and then you carefully guide their specialization into the workhorses of the brain, which are the neurons.
That makes a lot of sense. So, I can already kind of see how this would lead to a more complex and powerful brain.
Right. And this could be a key factor in explaining why our brains are so much larger and more complex than those of our closest primate relatives.
For sure. And, thinking about it in terms of evolution, that makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. It provides some really strong evidence for a genetic basis for our unique cognitive abilities.
So now I'm really curious about how they actually figured all of this out.
Yeah.
How did they even discover this?
So they used a really clever combination of research methods.
Okay.
First, they did some experiments with mice. They introduced these human-specific genes into the mice and observed what happened.
And how did that change the mice brains?
Yeah, well, they found that the mice with the human genes developed larger brains.
Wow, okay.
With more neurons, just like we were talking about.
So it's like they kind of gave the mice a little bit of a human brain boost.
Exactly, but what's even more fascinating is that they didn't just stop there.
Okay.
They also used some alternative methods like creating brain organoids from chimpanzee cells.
Oh, wow. I've heard about those.
Yeah, they're basically like miniature 3D models of brains that are grown in a lab.
That's crazy.
I know, it's pretty wild. And what they did was they compared the development of these chimpanzee brain organoids with and without the human-specific genes.
That's really cool. So they were comparing how our closest relatives' brains develop with and without that human twist.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the strengths of this study. The results from both the mouse experiments and the chimpanzee brain organoids, they complemented and reinforced each other.
So double confirmation.
Exactly. And that makes their findings much more robust.
For sure. For sure.
And Michael Hyde, who's the lead researcher on this project, he pointed out that this kind of parallel approach is really promising for the future of research. Because it could help us reduce our reliance on animal experimentation.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big win for everyone.
Totally. So we've talked about the evolutionary implications, but now I'm really interested in the potential real-world applications of this research.
Yeah, how could this actually help people?
Well, this is where things get really exciting.
Okay.
Because as Nissel Ishiok, who was the first author on the study, pointed out, this work really deepens our fundamental understanding of how the brain develops.
Right.
And in the long term, this could potentially lead to new therapeutic strategies for treating brain malformations.
Wow. That would be incredible.
Right. Because if we understand these core genetic mechanisms, we might be able to develop treatments that target the root causes of these conditions.
Okay, so instead of just treating the symptoms, you're actually going after the underlying genetic issue.
Exactly.
Wow, that is amazing.
So to kind of sum things up for our listeners, what we've learned today is that these two uniquely human genes, they work together in a really intricate way.
Yeah.
First, they multiply those brain cell precursors.
Right.
And then they guide their specialization into those functional neurons. And that seems to be like a major driver in how our amazing complex human brains evolved.
And the fact that these findings were confirmed through both animal models and this advanced organoid technology gives us a lot of confidence in the results. Yeah, it's like a multi-pronged approach leading to a really robust understanding.
Exactly.
And that understanding could open doors to like whole new ways of treating brain disorders.
Absolutely. And I think what's really important here is that this is just the beginning.
Right.
There's still so much more to learn about the human brain.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
If these two genes played such a crucial role in our brain development, what other hidden genetic stories are there?
Totally.
Like what other aspects of our biology or, even our consciousness might have these like specific and fascinating evolutionary origins just waiting to be uncovered?
I mean, it really makes you think.
It does. It does. It really makes you wonder what makes us us.
Yeah.
And maybe one day we'll have those answers.
I can't wait.
Me neither.
This is really exciting stuff.
It is. It really is. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but thank you so much for listening to this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you then.